It had been a while since I'd seen my nephew. I always looked forward to his visits, his easy laughter, the way his energy filled up the house, bringing life to the quiet routine I had settled into over the years. But that morning, something felt different. Maybe it was the way the sun filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the room. Or maybe it was the restlessness I couldn't shake, as if the world was waiting for something to shift, though I couldn't place exactly what it was. I had spent most of the day cleaning up around the house, preparing for his arrival. I knew he would be staying for the weekend, just like he had when he was younger. The quiet house would soon be filled with his presence, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nerves. I was in the kitchen when I heard the car pull up outside. I stood there for a moment, listening to the gravel crunch under the tires, then wiped my hands on the towel and went to the door. When I opened it, I was greeted by the familiar face of my nephew, now a bit older, but still carrying that boyish grin I remembered from years ago. "Hi, Aunt," he said, his voice warm, but there was something different in the way he looked at me, something more grown up. "Hey there, kiddo," I smiled, stepping aside to let him in. "It's good to see you. How's everything?" He shrugged as he walked past me into the house. "Same old, really. Just glad to get out of the city for a bit." I could tell he was a little awkward, still adjusting to being back in a place he hadn't visited in a while. He had grown up so much since the last time I'd seen him, and I couldn't help but notice the change in him. There was a maturity in his eyes now, a kind of quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. It made me feel like I was looking at a different person entirely, even though he was still the same nephew I remembered. We spent the rest of the evening catching up, talking about everything and nothing at all. I made dinner, and we ate together in the dining room, the conversation flowing easily at first. But as the evening wore on, I began to notice a shift in him. He was quieter now, his eyes occasionally lingering on me in a way I couldn't quite place. It wasn't just the typical family connection I was used to. There was an underlying intensity to his gaze that I couldn't ignore. As the night deepened, I found myself growing more aware of his presence in the house. The way he moved, the way he sat a little too close, and the way his voice had softened when he spoke to me. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Something was changing between us, something that neither of us had expected. "Do you need anything?" I asked, trying to break the silence that had settled between us. "You've got everything you need for the night?" He looked up at me, his expression unreadable for a moment, and then gave a slight nod. "Yeah, I'm good. Just. I don't know, it feels a little weird being back here. You know?" I smiled, trying to keep things light. "I get it. Things change. People change. But it's nice having you here, really." He smiled too, though it seemed forced, like there was something weighing on his mind. I didn't know what it was, but I had the feeling I was about to find out. The night went on, and the house felt quieter than before. The soft ticking of the clock on the wall, the occasional creak of the floorboards, all seemed to add to the tension in the air. I couldn't quite place it, but the sense of change was inescapable. And in the pit of my stomach, a feeling I couldn't identify began to settle in. Something was coming. Something I wasn't ready for, but couldn't stop. As I stood in the doorway of the living room, watching him sit on the couch, I felt the weight of the moment. He looked up at me once more, and the look in his eyes sent a strange shiver down my spine. I didn't know it then, but that night, this visit was about to change everything. The silence in the room was almost unbearable. I stood there, frozen, the weight of what had just happened pressing down on me like a physical force. My mind was racing, but it couldn't catch up to the whirlwind of emotions crashing through me. My nephew, this young man who I had known since he was just a boy, had kissed me. It was still hard to breathe, let alone make sense of it. His lips had barely brushed mine, but it felt like something much bigger had just unfolded in that fleeting moment. His presence in the room, so close to me, felt overwhelming. I could feel his eyes on me, but I couldn't bring myself to look at him. I was afraid that if I did, I might see something in his eyes that I didn't want to confront, something I wasn't ready to understand. My chest was tight, and my hands were shaking. "Aunt," his voice broke the silence, low and uncertain. "I'm so sorry." I didn't mean to, I don't know what came over me. The way he said it made my heart race even faster. He sounded almost as shaken as I felt. But I couldn't stop the anger and confusion building inside me. I should have pushed him away. I should have shouted at him, told him to leave. But instead, I stood there, unable to find the words to make him understand how wrong this was. I turned away, walking towards the window, hoping the cool night air would help clear my head. The room seemed smaller now, suffocating in a way I couldn't explain. My mind was flooded with thoughts and memories of him, and yet everything had changed in an instant. I had always seen him as family, someone I cared for, but now, the boundaries were blurred, and I didn't know how to feel about it. I don't know what to say, I finally whispered, my voice almost lost in the quiet of the room. But what just happened? It's not okay. You're my nephew, and this... I didn't even know how to finish that sentence. My voice trailed off as I turned back toward him, trying to look him in the eye. This shouldn't have happened. I didn't mean for it to be like this, he said, his voice trembling. I could see his hands clenched into fists, his body tense. I swear, I didn't plan for any of this to happen. But when I'm around you, I can't help it. It's like something inside me. It's too strong. The honesty in his voice hit me harder than I expected. He wasn't just apologizing, he was confessing something deeper than either of us were ready for. My heart wrenched in my chest, torn between what I knew was right and the strange pull I felt toward him, something I didn't want to acknowledge but couldn't ignore. I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. I was at a loss for words. What could I say to him? He was my family, and yet what had just happened felt like something far more complicated than just a mistake. His eyes, so full of vulnerability and regret, only made it harder to push him away. He took a step closer, then another, until he was standing just inches away from me. I could feel the heat of his body, hear the rapid beat of his heart, the intensity of his gaze never leaving mine. I wanted to pull away, to tell him to stop, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stood there, frozen, my mind spiraling as the air between us became charged with something I couldn't define. I can't control how I feel anymore, he whispered, barely audible, as if confessing some deep, shameful truth. But I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with all of this. I can't pretend it doesn't exist. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. This wasn't just about one moment of weakness. This was something real, something neither of us had expected to happen, but now we had to face it. The fact that he had been holding this inside, unsure of what to do with it, made my chest ache with a strange mixture of sympathy and fear. I turned my head, struggling to collect myself. You need to leave. Right now. Before this gets any worse, I said, my voice shaking but firm. The words felt like they were tearing me apart, but I knew they were the right thing to say. He hesitated, his expression one of raw vulnerability. I could see the fight in his eyes, the part of him that didn't want to leave, that didn't want to face the reality of what we had just done. But I couldn't allow it. I couldn't allow him to stay in the same space, not when everything had changed. Not when the air felt so thick, so heavy, that it was almost suffocating. I'm sorry, he whispered again, his voice barely audible. I'll go. I didn't move. I just stood there, watching as he slowly walked toward the door. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself, but I couldn't bring myself to do anything but watch him leave. I heard the door click softly behind him, and the silence that followed was deafening. I was alone again, but I didn't feel alone. The house felt empty, and yet it was filled with a tension I couldn't escape. I felt it in every corner, in the air I breathed, in my own racing heart. It wasn't just the kiss. It wasn't just the moment. It was everything that had led to this, everything that had been left unsaid. I knew it too. I knew that no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same. He had crossed a line, and in some twisted way, so had I. And now, there was no going back. As I stood there in the dimly lit room, my thoughts swirling in confusion, I realized something else. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back.